Welcome to Focus on Albany. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Dan Platt, and Dan Platt is running for the Common Council in the Third Ward. So, Dan, what made you decide to run?
Well, there's a few factors. It is an open seat after Councilperson Love decided she wasn't going to run for a third term.
Mm-hmm.
There is also the fact that when I ran for office for mayor 8 years ago, after that effort, I decided to turn not so much inward, but just sort of get my own footing, so being able to support myself, and also kind of work on community projects. So after 8 years of that, I'm ready to go back into legitimate party and political organizing, and that starts with canvassing and talking to people and connecting with people and the council campaign, as well as putting forward the agenda that I hope to put forward, a left-wing one, a socialist one, eco-socialist one, a democratic one, and communicate that with people. And that just means getting out there, and a council campaign is the best tool for that.
So, you're a Green, but the Greens don't have a valid line in New York State. So you're running as an independent, correct?
Sort of correct. Uh, yes, thanks to Como's reform, we do not have, and we do not expect to have the ballot line again for some time. So we are on the state level restructuring. Won't divulge because it's very much up in the air what we're going to do. But what it does mean is that, for me, is that it is an independent, I'm using an independent petitioning period, which is now. But it is because we had the ballot line before, just as we retain those who have registered Green Party, and you can still register as Green Party in the other category.
Mhm.
It means that we can put the Green Party as our independent petition. And so when I successfully gather those signatures, it will be for a Green Party ballot line. As you can do with when you do any independent petitioning, I think you can name what you run under. And I can simply do so as Green Party.
So you said that after a couple of years of doing other stuff, you want to get back into the political arena. So you live in the Third Ward. What are
Mhm.
the pressing issues for the Third Ward?
Well, in general, it's the most blighted part of town. It suffers from poverty, desperation, and various neglect from capital and the city over the last century. And so it's a very long decline slash abandonment. Um, those that have stayed here are state workers and those who have been able to stay here, and everyone else is some type of transient renter or such. Though that is starting to change with some interventions by groups like Habitat for Humanity, Urban Visions, who have built infill housing. So it's a little less blighted, especially in Sheridan Hollow, but there's still very far to go, especially when it comes to the western half of the ward, which is the section between Clinton Avenue and Central Avenue, where a lot of crime occurs. And it is rough. And
So
so there's a lot of different ways of tackling this. It's all kind of interconnected. I can go into that as you ask more.
uh, go ahead, explain.
Okay. So the general platform is to build more community ownership in our economy. We can do this through public works, public jobs, via gig work, thinking in terms of gig work, not just like, oh, we have to grow the public sector employment, because that would be pretty difficult, especially so long as healthcare is still, or health insurance is still private. Um, so there are larger issues like getting single payer healthcare in New York, which is, in state level actions. But as far as running for the city council, what can we do on the local level to increase community ownership? So that's a cooperative initiative. Um, that's turning the tools that we use for small business development into cooperative development. Why do we do this? Because cooperatives last longer, they are more democratic. There's just all of these positives versus cooperative development. That's both businesses and housing versus doing so via the private sector or personal entrepreneurship, because a single person needs a lot of support. With community support and with shared ownership and responsibility, more and better things can happen. A culture of trust could actually be built between us.
So, you say the blight started 100 years ago. That's quite a long time for a community to deteriorate like that.
Accurately, it probably started more in the mid-century. Basically when a lot of, like, say, the West Hill and West End neighborhoods were workers who worked for the railroad sector. So when that declined, so did all of the jobs. So it's kind of part of my agenda is building back some form of productive economy. Not so much that we need to provide something for other markets to buy. That's usually how it's thought about. You can't make profits without selling to someone else. But we need some kind of economic potential so we can self-provide. So that when supply lines get cut or there are decreases or recession or the tariffs, that we are not at the mercy of big business or the charity of various philanthropists. Um, and that goes towards the other half of it, which is more efficiency in the environmental and kind of waste streams.
Uh,
So having a food plan in all, which is part of the 2030 plan, but I haven't seen any movement on that. So that would be one of the issues I take on. A food plan, because we are in a food desert. It's kind of a far walk to get to the Delaware Ave price chopper. We still have the food deserts in the South End. We don't even, I think there's still Family Dollar on Livingston. That's in Arbor Hill. But essentially, this ward has no grocery store.
Okay. So the nearest grocery store to you is the Price Chopper on Delaware Avenue. Am I correct?
Yes,
Okay.
roughly a 15 to 20-minute walk, depending on if I'm carrying the groceries back. It's
Right.
a little faster if I'm on my bike, but it's still, I'm a single guy with a bike, with a good bike rack. I'm not shopping for a family,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a problem.
Okay.
And we would do this through municipal enterprise, which would need, I believe, approval from the state level. But we should start asking. You only get something if you ask. At
Mm-hmm.
least it's the first step. And we don't even ask to start municipal enterprises, as communities elsewhere in the country have done so after market forces or other companies refuse or just don't build a grocery store. It's a basic need, and there are so many basic needs that are just not being met in this neighborhood. And something has to be done. And there are deficiencies in the nonprofit sector which disallow long-term sustainability on that front, where you
Mm-hmm.
have to make 50 partnerships just to start. And that doesn't keep you in the black.
So you said that the problems in your ward have not been addressed. How far back would you say that's been occurring?
Well, certainly before I was born, you had to have certain inheritance of money or a state job if you were to actually purchase property here, or rather, not only purchase but renovate it. That requires a good credit score, and that requires capital. And so that's sort of the thing we need access to, and more access through the various tools that are not yet at our disposal, but we need to be asking about starting them. And those are the things I'll be pursuing when I win.
So you're running as a green.
Mhm.
How many other candidates are running under the green banner in the city of Albany?
Oh, to my knowledge, no one else. It's kind of a one-man show at this point, but the goal is one victory will lead to others. my victory, winning a council seat, will be the base for growing a local party chapter and
Mm-hmm.
thus more interest in other people running to show people you can win a council seat without being registered Democrat, or getting the endorsement of working families, but which is Corey Ellis's claim to fame, I believe. He mentioned it during a mayoral forum. So he would say he was the first like third party elected. Interesting. So I won't make that charge. But as far as the independence that the Green Party has in our current political establishment, that is the game changer. And it'll allow me to pull more of the city government towards me because I can stand firm and because I'm unbossed and unbought. And that is
Okay.
very important.
So,
That's our advantage.
as of right now, you do not have a mayoral candidate for mayor, right?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. Wow. So if you won the seat, you'd be like a voice crying in the wilderness. You would be the only one in the, in your independent Green Party when all of the rest is, probably Democrats. Do you think that's going to be uncomfortable for you?
I think a lot about our current society is uncomfortable, and that's sort of why I'm political in the first place. Every time I pass someone sleeping in the street, that makes me uncomfortable. And there are worse things in my neighborhood in this city than me being uncomfortable by being the only left winger, or rather open well left winger, or Green Party person. But there are two answers I have to this. One is all a majority of politics is making friends. I don't intend to go in making enemies and being completely obnoxious about demands and statements. Although that is, well, again, I'm laying out the two things I could do. So, what my supporter base asks of me, what direction they would like me to go, will determine what I do when I'm in office. But there's two routes. I'm forward, I'm strong on the positions, and I pump up the positions of the Green Party as well as the sanity that we offer in these insane times. So route two is it is possible to make friends, and I have made friends. I'm on friendly terms with a number of people. It can be awkward, but it's sort of while I'm in competition mode for this seat, that is a different story than when I'm in the council and we will work together. And I will do so as a principle. I will do so as a pragmatic, principled actor.
Mm.
And that's usually what's missing. There's a lack of principle being done. Or there are principles, but then some sort of pragmatism kind of takes hold, especially when you're working within a larger corporate organization like the Democratic Party.
So you have Lukey Ford who Forbes who's running, I would assume, on the Democratic line, correct?
Yes, he's one of three of varying ages. So Lukey's younger, James Davis is kind of middle-aged, and then there's Lumpkin who's older. So they sort of it's a good range of choices there, based on your taste.
So how strong are the Republicans in the mayoral and council uh, races this year?
I'm not particularly a person to answer that question. I can tell you that the last Republican who ran in this ward, a McIntyre, um, earned 68 votes against Love in the last general election, which was 4 years ago.
Okay.
That's 68 versus her 500.
Wow. That's a big difference.
Yeah. Now, granted, the number of those registered non-Dem in the ward is about a third of those registered.
Okay.
None of them are represented on the city council. And that's why proportional representation and more representative voting methods. I like star voting, which is like marking your preference for each candidate on a scale of 1 to 5. You're not ranking the candidates against each other. You're simply ranking your preference for the candidate. So in terms of food choices, let's say pizza and ice cream both get 3. Or rather, if multiple people, you can judge based on how much people really don't like this person or they kind of like this person. So you sort of get a better consensus by conglomerating everybody's preferences rather than just ranking them, because though ranked choice balloting is more known to people, it can still succumb to gamesmanship of a type.
So, you're running in the third ward. Um,
Mhm. Which is Sheridan Hollow and West Hill, or at least the southern half of West Hill. So you can think of it as a slice of pie running from Pearl Street to Ontario and between Central Avenue and First Street or Clinton Avenue.
so when you tell people you're running for office, what's their reaction?
Well, it depends on who I'm talking to, but generally positive.
Good.
Obviously, as I'm actually petitioning and I'm talking to the more wider diversity of people out there, people who don't think about politics or city offices at all, there's going to be more like, huh? Or that's okay. But otherwise, amongst the people I know, and obviously it's very positive. I would not be doing this if I did not have the support of friends and family, as well as the more friends and associates that I've made over the years, which also gives me the confidence to do all of this.
Okay. So you're in the petitioning process right now, correct?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
from what date to what date can you gather signatures?
I have until May 26th. Nope, the 27th. I have till May 27th to submit. At minimum, 52 signatures, but the standard rule is to get double that. So we'll see.
And so when did the petitioning process start from you? Right after the Democratic petitions was handed in?
I expected that, but not quite right after. It started April 15th, last Tuesday.
Okay. Okay. So you have what? 6 weeks, 5 weeks? How many weeks?
It's roughly 5 now.
Okay. Okay.
I
So
think it's enough time. Just got to get out there a lot. The Democratic candidates really hustled, and but some of them actually have resources, at least personal resources on the block. Me, I've definitely interacted with people on the more active level, like the neighborhood association, but I haven't quite established myself as a local, hyper local presence, because I've been working on the city level, more higher levels. But that's sort of the conclusion I've come to over the last 8 years is like we have to start hyper local. That's where people really are to help people more directly in the short term, in the medium term, building some type of economic floor, and then the long term, actually eroding the system as it is, and its hold on us. Because whether it's criminal justice reform, whether it's environmental or ecological, addressing climate change, you really have to get after our economic system. Um, you can't really reform or degrade imperialism or attack colonialism without undermining capitalism first. It's sort of you're sort of left with these impossible demands, abolish prisons or abolish the police, or even defunding the police. These things are impossible under our current economic relationships of boss and employee, landlord and tenant, no matter how well intentioned people are. There's some good actors in Sheridan Hollow. I was listening for quite a bit to one of the property managers for Clinton Avenue Apartments. She says she wants to do well by the tenants, and I believe her, and she is in a way. But she still is running a business, and so she has to cut people off if they can't pay exactly on time, and work against tenants' rights. So as much as I'm for tenants' rights, I'm also for dissolving this hostile relationship that exists, and I'm limiting it as me and my mother are decommodifying the building we own here on Elk Street by selling it to the land trust.
Okay. So, articulate what are the issues besides, what you just mentioned. How bad is violence in your gun violence in your ward?
Well, the section in the west is, I believe, the most violent piece of the city. It's where a lot of open drug selling happens or the dealing. And thus there is a high amount of antisocial activity or crime. Um, I don't like talking in terms of criminality, but antisocial behavior and activity, um, because there are contexts for this as well as the personal responsibility. So there needs to be both a societal and personal responsibility to it. In the same way that, um, we fight for more restorative justice, victims aren't really willing to go to the tape, to meet with the defendant or the criminal or the defendant, um, if there is not a safety net or an act that society is taking care of them. This is really important. And that's what I mean by economic floor. That regardless of whatever happens to you, whatever others do to you, forgiveness can only be an option if there's some wider justice. Justice like a type of guaranteed job. Now, we're not in the position of doing that. But on the city level, there's the ability to craft like a municipal gig app for work. I think the city could expand its temporary job offerings, and kind of gig work. There's all of this socially valuable work that can save other people thousands of dollars and the city as well in some ways. You don't have to spend so much on material if labor is available. And we have a lot of labor available in the city. People are precarious in their employment situation. Some of us have full-time jobs with the state, with the tech sector, with other growth areas, but everyone else is not, and they are struggling, and prices are only going up. So time is ticking, and we need to
Right.
do something more drastic than what we're used to doing in the city, which is sort of some business support, tax breaks here and there, and hope for the best.
Okay. Okay, so if somebody wants to participate in your campaign or donate to your campaign, how would they do so?
The website is plattforalbany.com. Plattforalbany.com. That's Platt with two A's. Keep that straight. Platt with two A's. PLAAT, or that's spelled out, not a letter, not the number, for albany.com. So there is quick bio there, the sign up form, and the donation page. And I am also making TikToks. It's a personal account, but it is Green Party themed and related. And the Facebook page is Dan Platt for Third Ward.
Final thoughts, Dan?
I want to thank you for having me on and giving me the platform as you have done. I reviewed how many Focus on Albany interviews I did with you. I think it was between 17 and 18. It was 20 if you count the roundtables I participated in. So,
Wow.
you know,
Okay. So,
yes.
Dan, good luck. You've been listening to Dan Platt. I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Focus on Albany. And if you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Dan, good luck, and thank you everybody for listening. Have a great day.